Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and you're following the 3H's of the channel. And in this video, it's all about a search and rescue operation gone wrong. So, if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. To start off, this happened a little over 10 years ago, and everything that I have written down was written down at that time while it was still fresh in my mind. I've come across it again recently. It kind of made me relive the events and that entire night, but believe it or not, here goes. A little background on me. At the time this happened, I was 27 years old. I was pretty much raised as a woodsman and a hunter. My grandfather would take me out into the bush every chance that we got for hunting, fishing, tracking, trapping, and general living off the land type stuff. Now my father, on the other hand, was more involved in emergency services, so I was also raised around incident command, medical first response, and all that blah blah boring stuff. Due to my upbringing, I naturally ended up becoming a dedicated volunteer with the local ground search and rescue unit when I turned 18. After only a year, I was made a team captain or instructor. Between this and my former job, I've seen murder, suicide, and accident victims that end up in all states of pieces, I guess is the word, rot and decay over the years. You get pretty tough skin when having to deal with all that. I thought that I could handle anything, but I was wrong. Of course, names have been changed, and the area will not be mentioned due to some confidential info, and I don't want the real names getting out. I'll just say that we were in northeast of North America. Around 1 a.m. on a Thursday morning, we had a call out for a missing native hunter who didn't return home after leaving to drop a few bags of apples off at his deer blind. We get calls like this a lot. Most times the person ended up getting their deer and just ended up staying the night to pack it out in the morning. Or worse, sometimes they slipped and fell. Or in one case, one had a heart attack while dragging the heavy apple bags. But most times, everything ends up fine. It ends up being a bit of a misunderstanding and everyone goes home happy. We all meet up at the local mall and hop in our transport bus as the location is about a 3-hour drive away. We get there at roughly 6 a.m., and while most people are helping to set up the mobile command post, my team, I lead the main hasty team, we go in first, is getting the lowdown on the situation before heading into the bush. The man is about 40 years old. He has a .303 rifle and has been hunting in this area for most of his life. I think that it's pretty strange. Usually local natives are great in the woods for navigation, and 40 is a little young for a heart attack, but I've seen it happen. My team of 5 started to head in where the man's truck was parked on the side of an old logging road. There's me, Jen, Sean, Steven, and Kyle. We all have wilderness backgrounds, and we were selected for the hasty team because we have proved ourselves time and time again to be one of the elite ones in our ragtag team of volunteers. Each one of us carries basic survival gear, an advanced medkit, and electronic and old-school navigation tools. The hunter's family and friends had provided us with the exact UTM coordinates for his deer blind, so we were going to head straight there first. It was roughly noon now, and by the looks of the GPS, we were almost at the deer blind. We are in a line search formation, each one spread roughly 10 feet apart, and suddenly we hear a scream. It sounds like a woman being stabbed in a slasher flick. The 2 searchers on either side of me instantly break the line and come straight to me. I reach for my radio to call in what we heard, but it's all feedback. It's not working. A brand new fancy $1,400 real-time tracking radio, and they still aren't worth a shit. I had to make a decision, and I tell the others to come on, and we start pounding ground fast in the direction of the sound and the deer blind. In about 10 minutes, I see the camouflage netting strung up around the trees. We found the blind. We get closer. The first thing I see is two large male foxes tearing up an old Alice frame style rucksack. Instantly, I recognize the screaming sound. Anyone who knows the woods knows what the fox actually says, and it isn't that comforting. Once we get closer, the critters realize that we are there and they take off like two bullets. I tell my teammates to stand back while I check out the area. Since the pack is there, I kind of figured that our hunter may be deceased in the blind. The first thing I notice, besides the torn up pack, is two large burlap sacks still full on the ground by the blind. The blind itself also seemed to be in horrible shape, all torn up. Leaves were kicked up, boot prints were in circles all around the spot, and I counted 16 empty .303 cartridges on the ground, only they were scattered, like someone was running in circles and shooting in all directions. The hunter is not in the blind. I'm starting to get confused, extremely confused. None of this adds up. I try my radio again, and still static. I dig out my cell phone, and of course, there is no signal. I back away slowly the way that I came. We were trained to preserve a scene like this in case it turns into a crime investigation. Police don't really like it when we mess things up too much. And when I got back to my teammates, I explained the situation, and I asked if any of them has a cell signal, as we need to inform command and police of the situation. But nothing works. I immediately take out my trusty notepad. I jot down everything that I observed. I then take out the GPS and try to take a bearing with my compass, as do the other four. We are going to get the hell out of Dodge right now. Something is wrong. I don't tell them that, but after I give them the info, I could tell that we were all thinking it. It's now about 2, and we were going pretty fast. Jen asks to stop for a minute to check our bearing, and I agree. I check, and sure enough, I'm on course. But everyone else tells me I'm wrong. We start to compare, and it turns out that everyone's GPS is giving different info. I think perfect, just what we need. I break out the map and take a peek. Triangulation is almost impossible because of the thick, tall, boreal-type forest that we are in. I try to get a basic idea from the contour lines on the map, as we are going slightly uphill. According to the map, we should be going downhill back toward the road. Getting turned around like this isn't something that I or the rest of the team have been known to do. I chalk it up to the stress of the situation and the stress that our minds are under. I tell everyone to stop. We need to rest for a while, eat, rehydrate, and try to gather ourselves up. Once we are fed, military rations do nothing for morale, and to have had plenty of water, we decide to make a game plan. Everyone is looking at the map and compass. A few moments go by, and we all compare notes on what the game plan is. The GPS units still aren't getting a proper satellite feed. The radio is still nothing but static. Again, everyone has different ideas. What the hell? Everyone rechecks their work, and Kyle says that we need to go north and points. Jen instantly agrees, except north is the other way. I look at my compass, and north is in yet another different direction. We all take our compasses off our lanyards and put them on the ground a few feet from each other and look. All 5 compasses are pointing in different directions. I don't know what to say or do or think at this point. Finally, I man up and say it. We're lost. That's right, search and rescue is lost. I've seen GPS fail many times, radios too, but my compass is my failsafe. The only time they go wonky is when there's a large metal source nearby. Now something really isn't right. The first rule when lost, stay where you are. They will either come looking for us, which is embarrassing, or we will hear teams passing by. We couldn't have gotten that far off track. I pull out my pen flare anyway and fire 3 red flares into the air. Then one of us has a go at blasting our Fox 40 whistles. Fast forward a few hours, 10 more flares, and so many whistle blasts that our ears hurt. The sun is going down, and it is cloudy as all hell. The temperature has already gone down to 5 degrees Celsius, and it was calling for rain tonight. For all of us, it was search mode off and survival mode on. I tell the team that it's time to build shelters and get prepared for a long and shitty, cold night. By the time we have 2 decent lean-tos made up and a fire between them, it's dark. We all have our canteen cups propped to the side of the hot coals to make some hot drinks with. We talk and chat and try to joke around for a few hours when we decide that it's time to try and sleep. It already had started raining and it was getting damp and chilly. Myself and Jen are under one lean-to. Stephen, Sean, and Kyle are under one to the opposite from us. We decide to have a fire watch to keep it burning and listen for any of the other teams that may be close. Our organization searches in the dark and shitty weather, unlike a lot of other ones. After an hour, the person awake was supposed to wake the next, so on and so forth until morning. I took the first watch. First is always better, you get to sleep longer. Kyle moved over to our lean-to. He and Jen laid toe to toe. I was barely covered by what was left of the shelter, getting wetter and colder by the minute. I decided to get off my ass and move around a little. The rain was slowing down, and besides, we needed more firewood. From here, things begin to go very wrong. I'm about 15 or 20 feet away from the lean-tos. I'm breaking dead lower branches off a black spruce. Then I hear a crash and a whole lot of screaming and cursing. After running back, all I can see is 2 torn down shelters and my 4 searchers crawling out from under them. What the F? I asked, knowing full well our shelters were great. They were constructed very well. We're trained to build them extremely sturdy. Jen is screaming and crying, saying someone was here, someone was here. Kyle asked where the hell I was, and I explained that I was getting more firewood, hence fire watch. Jen was hysterical, the kind of hysterical where you can't get a straight answer out of them. After calming her down, we got the full story. She had woken up, suddenly. She had a sick feeling in her stomach, and then heard something. Footsteps. She thought that it was me walking around, but then she heard a loud crack. She rolled over and looked, and in the firelight, she said was the shape of an extremely large person pushing down on the main cross poles of the lean-tos, and in an instant, the whole shelter was on top of her. Instantly, I go into rage mode. I tell them to gather their gear. It was probably some inbred redneck out here screwing with us. After we packed, I searched the area. No footprints, not even broken ferns, nothing. Whoever it was one stealthy person. Stephen keeps saying that we need to stay put. Our navigation and radio is still on the screwed up side. At that point, I didn't care. I assign everyone a number and tell them that whenever I holler out 1, they are to holler out their number in succession. We are going to spread out into a line and walk. My reasoning being, if we are a single file, we can miss an old ATV trail or something. We all flip our headlamps, mag lights in hand, and start walking. After 100 paces, I holler, 1. 2 comes from my left, Jen. 3 comes from my farther left, Kyle. 4, still left, from Sean. 5, left, Stephen. And then, from my right, comes 4. But it didn't sound human. It was like a sick moose trying to talk with its throat cut, a gurgling, disgusting sound, deep, yet rung with a high pitch to it. I don't even remember thinking. Instantly, my mag light and headlamp were pointed in the direction of the voice. I don't know what the hell to really call it besides a voice. There was a person there, tall, really tall, looking straight at me. He looked to be kind of native, only at least 7 feet tall. He had on a camo hunting jacket, but it was now 1,000 sizes too small. His arms were unnaturally low. His hands almost reached his knees, and then I noticed that one leg was at least a foot longer than the other one. I shone my light in his face, and I almost threw up. I can only describe it as the worst stroke victim I've ever seen. One side of his face looked fine. The other looked almost like it was melted. The right eye was 3 inches lower than the left one. The bottom lip hung below his chin. I'll admit it. I started screaming like a 10-year-old little girl. I fell down on my ass. That's how hard and loud I screamed. The thing's lip curled up the side of the face that was fine and extended almost to its ear in the most disgusting, unreal smile that I could imagine. I heard everyone running toward me. The thing dropped onto all fours and started running like a cheetah through the bush. The rest were with me now, asking me what the hell happened. Was I all right? I kept asking, "Did you see it? Did you see it?" None did, but they said they heard the voice trying to call number 4. Jen was chalk white again. Tears were running down her cheeks, and she just stared at me. I got up and hugged her hard, and she whispered in my ear, "I just want to go home." I loaded my pen flare with a bear banger, loud and explosive projectile for scaring large animals, and tried the radio again. Still nothing. I said, "Let's go. No more side by side. We stay within arm's reach of each other." We power hiked at full speed for what seemed like miles. The whole way, branches were cracking all around us. We heard something running in all directions. What is worse is every now and then we would hear 4 in that same disgusting voice over and over again. Each time we heard it, it almost sounded a little more human, a little more like Sean. I can't speak for the others, but I was on the verge of throwing up from being so scared. I've never felt fear like that. I didn't know it was possible to feel fear like that. After what felt like an eternity, the sun started coming up. The running sounds and breaking branches slowed down. We haven't heard the thing speak for almost an hour now. Sean stopped suddenly and said, "Did you hear that?" We all stopped and listened. It was a whistle. I blew back 3 times, and then the other whistle sounded off again, and I thought, thank God. All 5 of us raced toward the sound as fast as we could. I was still blowing my own whistle, as were the other 4 as we ran. We finally came upon a team of searchers. The leader, Dave, started asking us questions. Were we all right? What happened? We lost contact with you. The command post couldn't pick up on our tracking radio to see where we were. Dave's and my own radio suddenly came alive, scared the hell out of me. Team 4, we just picked up Team 1's signal. They are right on top of you. Are they with you? Dave responded that we were all right and that we were heading out. On the way, I checked my GPS, as did the rest of my team. The GPS was working now, the compass was working, and the radio was. Dave also informed me that they had found the hunter. Where at? I asked. He was at his deer blind. He was unconscious, but Team 3 managed to wake him, and he walked it with them. And I said, "What? No, we were there. He wasn't there." I explained the ripped pack, the empty cartridges all over the ground, and the half-torn down blind. My team agreed with me. They didn't see the blind, but after everything that happened, I think that they were just trying to fight off insanity. But Dave insisted that Team 3 said that the area was clear. It was only the hunter and his rifle. We got back, and I went for my debriefing with my search manager and the commanding officer with the police. I left out the whole monster in the woods thing, shelters getting knocked down, and all that stuff, but I made it very clear the state that the hunting spot was in. Apparently, Team 3 had taken pictures of the area while the hunter was gathering his wits before they left. The leaves weren't kicked around. The blind looked like it had been remade. There were no empty cartridges on the ground. The apples were in one pile on the ground and not in bags. They also kept insisting that the hunter did not have a pack, nor was a torn-up rucksack seen or even reported. Everything was still wrong. We were safe, but everything was wrong. I left the command post and walked over to the ambulance where the hunter was. I was going to ask him if he was okay, and about the empty cartridges all over the ground. I know what I saw. When I rounded the corner of the ambulance, there he was. That's the person that I saw. Only now he looked right. But that face, that jacket, I stood there, wide-eyed for a minute, when it opened its eyes, looked at me, and smiled. Something about it gave me an instant nope. I turned around, picked up my gear, went on the bus. My team and I sat together on the ride home. We never said a word the entire way. Days later, my search manager called me and told me that the hunter was all right physically, but after an evaluation at the hospital, he was put into psychiatric care as he just wasn't acting right. They figure it's shock from exposure to the elements, possible head trauma. I thought that this was BFing-S, and then I got thinking, did the search and rescue team take something out of the wilderness and put it into society where it doesn't belong? What happened to the hunter? I know that that person was not the hunter. I feel like I can never sleep properly again. I grew up in the woods, but now I'm terrified to even think about going back in there. The thought of getting called for another search is making me so anxious, it's making me sick. And that's everything that I wrote down from after it happened. Eventually, I did go on some minor search and rescue operations, but nothing happened. Everything turned out as it normally should. It's one of those things that I just try to forget. So that was one crazy encounter, wasn't it? If you liked this video, I have many other videos on the channel that you'll probably like too. And if you have a story of your own, you can send it to me at the email in the description below. Down there as well is a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to support the channel that way. And with that, I think I will see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump with me, and thank you for watching. I'll see you Friday.